Hey guys, welcome back to RMA Garage. I'm Mark and I'm glad you joined us for another episode of, well, YZ250FX year-end maintenance, which we're into nearly May at this point, and I don't know if I'm ever gonna get this done. My wife is wondering, when are you gonna get this thing put together so we can get our garage back? Well, it's coming. But anyway, we are going to check the valve clearances on this dirt bike. And I've been wanting to do this now for a while because it's just been eating at me. I was wondering how and what type of wear we have on this bike. So we're gonna be taking the cap off. We're gonna be showing you how to do dead center and then showing you on the cams on where to position it. And then we're gonna do the readings and show you, hopefully, we don't have to do any adjustment. But if we do, then that'll be video number 2, because I've never done that before. And boy, that would be a video for the ages, because I don't have any shims. I don't have all the wherewithal to do that. So I would have to teach myself how to do that. But so anyway, we are going to dive into this and hopefully educate you guys, at least to be able to learn how to check the valve clearances and to see where your bike stands. So, all right, so let's get to it. Okay guys, so a few things before we get started. Tools we're gonna need, ratchet. I'm gonna pull the spark plug, so if you have your spark plug wrench here. You're also going to need a couple of hexes. I believe this is a number 5, and this is a number 6 for taking off the covers. Number 14 socket head, and we'll get talking about this here in a second. You're going to need your manual to basically know what the valve clearances are. And our valve clearances for the intake is between 0.12 and 0.18 millimeters right there. And then the exhaust is 0.17 to 0.24. Okay, so those are our tolerances. I do have our feeler gauges here, which range from 13, 15, and then what's that, 18, 20, 23, 25. So this is kind of in the range, but then I also have some smaller ones in case we gotta combine them to get an exact measurement. Now I took them off of the stick because I like to just be able to use them one at a time instead of holding it, because I want to be able to you know, feel with the feeler gauges, I guess, for lack of a better term. Okay, so I showed you this thing. This here is a makeshift tool that we had to make. And this is, the top of this head is a number 14, and that is for taking off this cover, okay? I do not have a hex head wrench that fits that. So what I did was I found a bolt at the hardware store and jammed 2 nuts on the end of it and basically made a tool so I could take this cover off, okay? So you will have to have something like this before you can do the valve clearances to take this off, because we need to take this off to spin the crankshaft to get it top dead center on this and top dead center on that. And I'm gonna definitely take the spark plug out to inspect it. I can't remember if I took it out in a previous video or not, but we will check it to make sure. But that will also take the compression out of the engine so we can turn it easier. Okay, first thing we're going to do is take the spark plug wire off. I'm going to stick the wrench down in, and this actually is a number 14, and that's what we're going to use to open this. If the bike doesn't move on me when I turn it, there we go. Very long threads on this one, if I remember correctly, so it takes a while to get off. There we go. I think it's out now. No, we did not replace it. That is the original one. So let's see here. If I can focus on the camera. It doesn't look too bad. He has not ridden this much because this was brand new when we put it in at the end of the previous year. So yeah, that one is still good. We're probably not even going to replace it. All right, so we're ready to take the valve cover off, but I want to double check, make sure, triple check there were no clumps of mud, No dirt, no debris, no loose wires, or anything that can fall inside the engine. We do not want to have to deal with that today. Okay. Don't know if these have ever been off. Okay, so those are loose. We do also have behind here, let's see if I can show you. There, this is a breather tube. You're going to want to take this spring clip off. Okay, and I'm going to hit that with a rag because it's a little dirty. I just want to make sure that we don't introduce any dirt into this engine during this process. All right, so I'm just going to use a little screwdriver here to just encourage this off. Okay, so that's off. Now there's something else I'm going to do here, and it might be just a little off camera here, but this is the plug to the top of the carburetor, and you'll see when you go to put the valve cover back on, which is I've done this before, this plug gets in the way, and I'm going to move it up out of the way here. So again, I'm being a little obsessive about making sure there's no dirt stuck anywhere that's going to fall in here. This is the silly stuff. You know, just taking the valve cover off and not making sure that it's clean. That's the easy part, and sometimes I think people tend to forget that. All right, so now there's nothing else holding the cap on. Now there will be a little bit of, I guess you could say, gasket sealer. Yamalube makes their own gasket sealer, and they put it in a couple of different places. Now this is not the easiest to get out because of the gas line. What I'm doing is I'm kind of prying off the bottom of the valve. There's a rubber seal that goes around this whole thing, and I don't want to take it with it when I take the valve cover off because I don't want to rip it. It's this hose. That's the hose. There we go. All right. Wow, that's very clean inside. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this off. That's the gasket. No, we'll end up cleaning that. All right, so the next step is we're going to take the valve cover or the engine case cover off here, and then this here also lets us see the gearing. I guess I forgot to tell you guys, you don't have to drain the engine of the oil to do this. It can stay full, no problem, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to put this on first. This is our little makeshift bolt, and on this one that I made, it's a number 15 millimeter to take this off, okay? All right, so now we're going to take that off, and it's not very tight. The torque specs on this are not very, very high. Okay, so there's that, comes off there. Okay, so this is a number 6, and that's not going to be very tight at all either. Okay, so now we're ready, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these and put them on the workbench so no dirt falls in them. Okay, we zoom back out, and now what we want to do is we want to rotate this until we're top dead center. Okay, now what I want to show you guys, okay, I'm going to zoom up here real quick. If I can do this gingerly. Okay, on the camshaft, there's two little bumps right there, okay? That's not what you want. You want to wait until you get a single one, and that's how you know that you are very close to top dead center. Okay, so now We zoom up again on this. Now you can see there's one tick mark there, okay? So now we are very close to being top dead center. I'm gonna take the camera off here and show you. So inside here, so you see the little tick mark on the white? Okay, that corresponds with the tick mark on the top here. Okay, now if we go to the top of the engine, you got a tick mark on the top there, and ever so, see if I can, there's the tick mark right there, showing that we are at top dead center with the top of the cams. All right, guys, we're ready to check the clearance, and we're gonna do the intake first on this side. The intake is, the valve clearance is between 0.12 and 0.19. So we're gonna start off as a 13, which is just a hair bigger than the lowest portion. And I can get both of those in, no problem. That was a 0.13, okay? Okay, so now we're gonna bump it up to a 0.15. That does not go in. Does this one go in? All right, so that one goes in. So this one already, we know that it's between a 0.12 and a 0.15, which is still within spec. So we know that this one's good. Let's keep going. This one is a 0.15 and it goes in. So we're gonna go a little larger, and the next one on my feeler gauge is a 0.18, which is the highest, or getting near the highest. So the 0.18 does not go in. So now we know that this one is between a 0.15 and a 0.18, and that is within spec. So, so we're good on the intake. The exhaust is between a 0.17 and a 0.24. So let's start with a 0.18, which is going to be just a hair bigger. That one goes in no problem. And that one goes in no problem. So that's a 0.18. So the next one on my list is a 0.12. So 0.12, that one goes in, and that one goes in, but it's kind of tight. 0.12 is kind of tight. Okay? So that's probably going to be what it is. So that's a 0.12. On that side, or I'm sorry, a 0.2. Yeah, that's a 0.2 on this side. And that's probably going to be what it is, because it's tight enough where I can get it in, get it out, but it sticks a little bit. Okay, so now we want to go up to the next size that I have that's a full feeler gauge is a 0.23, and that does not go in at all. Okay, so we know on our list it's between a 0.2 and a 0.23, which is within spec on the exhaust valves. So we are 100% in spec with this engine. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is we need to clean off the residue from the gasket sealer all the way around the cylinder head. And I don't know if you guys can see, I'm going to zoom in. You see there's a little bit, let me see if I can focus down in there. There's a little bit of gasket sealer right here that we need to clean off. That's going to need to be cleaned off. There's a little bit on the end here as well. Careful not to get any into the cylinder head at all. But we need to clean all of this. What we're also going to need to do is we're going to need to clean all the residue out of this section. There you go. There's some residue in here. So we're going to need to clean out all of this and get rid of all the dirt. And then we have new YamaBond semi-drying liquid gasket. So this is the gray stuff, and that's what's on here. So we're going to get all this prepped so we can get the valve cover back on. So the best thing that I've found for cleaning the gasket material is Vapor Clean by Blendzall. This stuff is super fantastic. It will take off all the dirt and the grime. And what I do is I spray it on a rag, and then I kind of get it in here. And what this does is this even takes off all the grease, and this takes off the oil as well, because you don't want oil on this when you go to marry these things two together. Okay. Guys, we got the valve cover all cleaned up, and we've got the rubber gasket here that's reusable. We got that all cleaned up. And I wanted to kind of bring to your attention that, okay, so this side here is the top, you know, so it's going to be, the valve cover sits basically on top like this, okay? But I wanted to let you guys know that there really isn't any gasket sealer on the top of this, okay? So when it gets stuck down into here, there's no need to put gasket sealer between the gasket and the valve cover. You can see still a little bit of residue from the gasket cleaners or gasket material that I still need to get out here just a little bit. I'm going to use a pick, but it's coming out. But what you're going to do is you're going to be using a little bit. It seems as though Yamaha used the gasket sealer in these areas right here, okay? Because obviously you got two tight tolerances here and a tight tolerance there, and they just want to make sure that no oil was going to come out of the cylinder head or out of the valve cover. So that's what we're going to do, is we're going to put a little bit on here, a little bit in here, and a little bit on there, and we're going to set this onto the cylinder, and then I'm going to put the valve cover on. I've tried it both ways, and putting this on first and then putting the cover on top of it seems to be the better deal, because these there's really nothing holding these in place, so they're kind of flopping around in there. But if these are set in the motor first, then I got a better chance of lining this up with this and having it not be all twisted. So we're going to put a little bit on there. We'll put a little bit on the vertical. And we're going to put a little bit here on the end, right at the corner, and a little bit right on the end here. And those are going to be our critical areas for oil leakage. Okay. Not a whole lot, just a little bit. And when we're done, it'll smash down, and it should not go into the engine because we didn't really put a whole lot there. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this like so. And then I'm going to bend down here and hold these lobes open, and it's just going to set right down into the sealant. There we go. So now that's in. And now we have the gasket material is all pretty much where it needs to be. There's a little bit on the inside, we'll just wipe it off. And this stuff will dry well before we start the engine, so. All right, so there was a little bit coming out on that side. Okay. We'll just wipe off some of the excess. But see, now we have these areas, a little bit of extra protection there. And that's it. I mean, that's all you got to do here. So now, getting this valve cover back on, should go in better than it came out. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so now that gasket is now, it's sitting where it needs to be. So what we have to do is just kind of coax it up into all right, so this is the tricky part, but it is doable. I've done it before. The hard part is just getting the gasket to seat everywhere around it, knowing that you got it in there. I always found that right in the front here is the worst spot, is the hardest spot, because you've got a couple of pieces that it's got to go on the inside and on the outside. Okay, so now I do believe that it is sitting flush, and we're gonna so yeah, right in there. You can see it's fitting flush right there. And then right here, you got a little bit of the gray sticking out, and then you know that it's flush in the back here. And let's check the other side. Sorry for the jerky camera, and this is all nice down completely. All right, so now we know that the cover is on. Okay, so now we're ready to install everything back on. Double, triple checked that the valve cover is squarely centered on the top of the engine, because you don't want to pinch it. And before we get too crazy on this, the torque spec is going to be 7 foot-pounds-ish. We're talking about the top of the engine here, so I'm not going to get too crazy with making sure this is super tight. There it is. Not a whole lot. 7 pounds is not a whole lot. And that one's already tight. Okay, so that's good. Okay, so now we're up here. Might as well do the spark plug. And this has 9 foot-pounds of torque. Okay. All right, so now we can put, before we forget, you put the switch or the plug for the carburetor. That's back on. And I guess we could probably go and put this back on here before we put the spark plug wire back on. This is the breather tube. Make sure that the spring is close. Okay. There we go. So the spring's on. Okay, that's all down. All right, so now we just have these two to put back on. This has a torque spec of about 4 pounds. So we call that boy tight. That should be good right there. Because my torque wrench, I don't want it to it goes up to 80 pounds, and to do 4, I don't trust it. I need a smaller torque wrench to trust it. And this one is about 7. All right, guys, that's it for today's video. I can rest easier now that I know my valves are in spec and that nothing's crazy gonna happen. So I'm gonna leave links below on all the tools that we used, the vapor clean, the gasket sealer, feeler gauges, and maybe a few other items that I'll throw in there, just so you guys have the right tools to do the job. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I've been wanting to do this one for a while just because I've tried to look up other videos on how to do it and I wasn't really pleased with it, so I put all my information together. Hopefully this one will help you guys out a bunch. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. If I did anything wrong, hey, we're all learning here. But don't forget to like and subscribe and click on the bell because there's going to be more videos. I'm really anxious to do the fork seals on this as well. I want to make sure that the forks are clean, and that's another major item here. Once we get the forks done, the rest of it's just going to be a little bit of this and that. So stay tuned, more videos on the way. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.